Pro-Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine evacuating civilians out of the region today amid recent flare-ups. Sirens blaring in the city of Donetsk today, just about an hour after that evacuation order went into effect. But watch how people on the street react. All right, well, you saw right there almost no response from most people who appear to continue going about their daily lives there, although some areas of the country did see long lines at ATMs and gas stations. And take a look at this footage released by the Ukrainian Armed Forces press. It shows a shell exploding near an army checkpoint in the Luhansk region on the border with Russia. The Ukrainian government and pro-Russian separatists trading blame over who's responsible. And this explosion at a government building is what those pro-Russian rebels say sparked the evacuation order. A parked Jeep with no one inside was blown up near a government building. Both Russia and Ukraine blaming one another for the recent escalation, and now the U.S. weighing in, claiming this could be the false flag operation that Russia has been planning as a pretext to invade. Philip Crowther is on the ground for us in Ukraine, reporting for NewsNation. Philip, a lot of finger pointing from both sides here. We just heard from President Biden. What do we know for sure?
Look, this is a surprisingly calm capital city of Kiev. A lot of people partying out in the streets on a Friday night who might not be entirely aware of the warnings that have been coming in, as you just heard from President Biden there, saying that an attack is not just imminent and the decision has been made by Vladimir Putin, but that also this city right here would be a place that Vladimir Putin would want to attack. This is something that people here have been thinking about, but maybe are not entirely aware of, that this could be happening in the next few days. Let's take a look at what has come before, including over the last hour or so. The latest pictures we have seen, these come from Russian state television, of a large explosion in Luhansk. Luhansk is one of the cities in the Donbass, in the separatist-held region. This appears to be an explosion at a gas or oil pipeline. That's the latest we're hearing from there. Earlier in the day, you already mentioned it, something that is being deemed possibly a car bomb outside of that government building. And as you mentioned, this has been seen by the Biden administration, already had been predicted rather by the Biden administration as something that would happen. An explosion like that one, maybe something deemed a terrorist attack by the Russian government, a false flag operation, as the Biden administration would possibly call it, a pretext for Russia to invade Ukraine. Now, today also, and yesterday, over the last 48 hours or so, we've seen a lot of shelling in the Donbass, in those separatist-held areas and along the line of control between the Ukrainian military and those separatist fighters. Those two sides essentially saying one is responsible for that shelling and the other saying, of course, the exact opposite. Those sirens that went off, that's in the city of Donetsk. As a reaction, it would appear to what separatists and indeed the Russians as well are saying could be an imminent attack by the Ukrainian military. There is no proof of that, and indeed Ukraine has said that is something it was not planning to do in the slightest. And that in turn led to that mass evacuation. We don't know right now whether it's actually happening or not, but the plan to evacuate that whole area, well, that came from separatist leaders in the area. Let me also take you to another statement from within the administration, this one coming from the State Department. It really reflects how the administration sees things happening in Russia and Ukraine right now. The State Department accusing Russia again of disinformation, of being the aggressor, and adding this: it is cynical and cruel to use human beings as pawns to distract the world from the fact that Russia is building up its forces in preparation for an attack. Now, that buildup of forces is ongoing, according to NATO member countries and the United States, of course, as well. Over 150,000 troops believed to be on the borders between Russia and Ukraine and the border between Belarus and Ukraine. We don't know yet right now what exactly those troops are going to be doing, but the Russian government is saying that they are there for training exercises only and that they will depart back to bases in time. Absolutely no evidence of that happening right now.
And Philip, before we let you go, hearing from President Biden just now, his tone seems to have certainly changed, the tone coming from the State Department. But again, you mentioned the word calm. So things there still appear to be calm.
Yes, absolutely. There's always been this very strange disconnect between the calm here in the capital city and those dire warnings. Again, more and more serious warnings coming from the administration. This is the clearest yet when President Biden says that he now believes that Vladimir Putin has made up his mind, that he will be attacking Ukraine. I think what people here would tell you and have been telling me over the last few weeks is they're simply used to this kind of a scenario. They have seen Russia build up forces on the borders with Ukraine before, only to then bring those forces back from the borders. And they've also been living with a war, after all. Remember, the Ukraine has been at war with Russian-backed separatists for 8 years now in precisely those areas that we just discussed, where there appears to be more shelling going on right now. But I think the moment has come for people here in Kiev and the rest of Ukraine to start essentially making plans. Here in the city, we know that there's a list of bunkers, for example. People have to find out now, slowly but surely, what their closest bunker is. And there are plenty of civilians here, by the way, also now taking training to be able to defend their city and their country just in case.
Absolutely. Time to start making plans. All right, Philip Crowther on the ground for us in Ukraine. We appreciate your reporting. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.